Hello, recappers. Today's movie starts by showing us Brian, a writer who is having a hard time in life. One day, while walking down the street, he sees a beautiful girl. Curious, he stops to talk to her. She seems different, calm, and graceful, and Brian enjoys talking with her. Her name is Arielle. When Brian hears her name, he smiles and says, "That's the name of the Little Mermaid, right?" Arielle doesn't know what that is, so Brian explains that it's a cute and popular Disney character. Their talk goes smoothly, and Arielle then asks, "Should we meet every day?" Brian says he would love that. She suggests they meet every Friday at the same place, and he agrees. After meeting her, Brian feels very happy. Later, he calls his dad to talk about his writing. His dad tells him to go back to law school, but Brian doesn't want to. He says no and decides to keep chasing his dream of becoming a writer. On Friday, Brian goes to meet Arielle again. She shows up and says, "You really came. I thought the rain might stop you." They talk more. Arielle asks what Brian does, and he tells her about his writing. She asks if he's published anything, but he says he's still working on it. As they talk more, Brian asks what she used to do. Arielle says she was a model, but she quit 8 years ago. Before leaving, Arielle says she's usually free between 5 o'clock and 7 o'clock in the evening. They agree to meet again on Monday at the same time. On Monday they meet again, and this time Arielle takes Brian to an art museum. Brian finds the place a little boring, but he stays because of Arielle. On their walk afterward, Arielle reveals that she is already married. Brian is taken aback. He asks if she has children, and she replies that she does, 2 of them, and shows him their pictures. Later, as Brian is walking down the street feeling emotional, a car suddenly pulls up beside him. A man inside asks Brian to get in. Hesitant but curious, Brian agrees. The man introduces himself as Valerie, Arielle's husband. They shake hands, and Valerie tells Brian that he's heard a lot about him. Arielle speaks of Brian often, he says, and with great fondness. Valerie admits he's never seen Arielle's eyes light up the way they do when she talks about Brian. For that, he thanks him. Valerie then invites Brian to dinner at his house. Brian agrees but later questions Arielle about why she mentioned him to her husband. Arielle replies that she doesn't care about such things anymore. She's beyond hiding. On the night of the dinner, Brian arrives, nervous and unsure. Arielle's daughter warmly welcomes him. Valerie takes Brian inside, where many important guests are gathered. Brian introduces himself and meets a woman named Jane, an editor who might help publish his work. During dinner, Brian begins to relax. Despite the formality, he and Arielle can't stop glancing at each other. After the party, Brian shares a taxi with Jane. They talk, and Jane tells him she likes his writing. Later, Brian and Arielle are seen in a restaurant, where Brian's mother arrives to meet her. As they chat, Brian's mother questions Arielle about her background. When she learns that Arielle is 33, married, and has 2 children, she is shocked and upset. She tells Brian the relationship is wrong. Arielle, however, says little in her defense. She lets her emotions speak instead. After that, both of them sit in the car. Brian's mother turns to him and says, "Now, I hope everything makes sense to you." Just then, loud laughter bursts from the back seat. Brian's mother genuinely likes Arielle. Then his parents quietly drive away, leaving Brian to his thoughts. In the following days, Brian and Arielle spend more and more time together. Their bond grows deeper, not just in affection, but in routine and comfort. One day, Valerie and Arielle have an important engagement, but their babysitter falls sick. With no one available to watch the children, Arielle calls Brian for help. He happily agrees and takes the kids to the park. The children laugh and play without a care in the world. Arielle's son candidly asks, "Are you my mom's boyfriend?" Brian doesn't respond. He just smiles, and the boy runs back to join his sister on the swings. A short while later, Arielle arrives at the park and compliments Brian, saying her children had a great time and played baseball really well. She then shares exciting news. Brian's book has been officially accepted by a major publishing house, and he's been invited to an award ceremony. Arielle is thrilled, telling him she always believed he'd go far. Brian, overjoyed, invites her to accompany him to the event. However, Arielle declines. It's scheduled outside of their 5 to 7 timeframe. At the ceremony, Brian is noticeably anxious and uneasy, especially when he spots Arielle sitting nearby with her husband. Jane, his editor and friend, tries to ease his nerves by introducing him to her boss, who expresses admiration for Brian's writing and wants to help publish his next work. Later, as Brian is dropping off his parents, his father again tries to steer him toward law school. But his mother, sensing Brian's discomfort, intervenes. Brian makes an excuse and steps out of the car. Needing clarity, he called Jane and asked for recommendations on jewelry shops. He wanted to find something perfect for Arielle. Jane was surprised and reminded him that most high-end jewelry stores were expensive. Brian insisted, telling her he had $6,000 from his book advance. Jane gave him an address, and soon after, Brian purchased a beautiful ring. He later met Arielle and proposed to her. With sincerity in his eyes, he said, "Please let me be your husband. I want to love you and care for your children as my own." Arielle hesitated and gently refused. "It's not about whether you can be a father to my children," she explained. "My life is complicated. I'm already married." Brian pleaded, pouring out his feelings. Eventually, Arielle softened and accepted the ring. They planned to meet the next day at 4 o'clock, earlier than usual, and she promised to bring a suitcase. As Brian packed with anticipation, Valerie appeared at his door. Brian, surprised but composed, invited him in. Without warning, Valerie punched him. "I welcomed you into my home, and you betrayed me," he said. Then, pulling out a check for $240,000, he added, "This is for you, to give Arielle the life she deserves." With that, he turned and walked out. The next day, Brian arrived at the hotel, his heart pounding. But Arielle wasn't there. Only a note awaited him. In it, Arielle confessed that she had loved him from the very first moment they met. She cherished every second they had shared, but she also remembered that she had once felt that same powerful love with Valerie, the man she married and had children with. They had made promises, vows, that she now realized she could not break. Arielle wrote that she couldn't abandon Valerie or her children. At the end of the note, she asked Brian not to contact her again. She had made her choice, and this was goodbye. Brian found the ring she had returned and handed it to the hotel receptionist, asking her to give it back to Arielle if she ever came by again. As he exited the building, he caught a glimpse of Arielle, but she didn't acknowledge him. She looked away and vanished into the crowd. Sometime later, Jane visited Brian. Curious, she asked if he knew how Arielle was doing. Brian said he didn't know. Jane asked why he didn't care. Brian explained that he had chosen to walk away, for the sake of their friendship and for his own peace. Jane and Brian grew closer and became good friends. Brian began to write again, pouring all his emotions into his work. One day, Jane covered Brian's eyes and took him to a surprise place, a bookstore. When she removed the blindfold, Brian saw his book on the shelf. It was called The Mermaid, inspired by Arielle. He didn't show much emotion, but it clearly meant a lot. Jane was very excited and said they should celebrate. After they left, Arielle walked into the store. She saw the book, read the title, and smiled. Her face showed warmth, sweet memories, and a little sadness. Years went by. Brian married someone else and had a son. He lived a happy and peaceful life. One day, while walking in the city with his family, Brian saw Arielle. She was with Valerie and their now-grown kids. They greeted each other kindly. Valerie said, "I've read all your books. They're amazing." Then, to Brian's surprise, Arielle gave back the ring he once gave her. She had kept it all those years and still wore it. The two families talked for a while, then went their separate ways. Brian felt at peace. Whether he would see Arielle again or not didn't matter. What mattered was that she had never forgotten him. She kept the ring, his symbol of love, for all those years, and that was enough. And that's how our story ends. What did you think about the ending? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss our next breakdown.